July is National Parks and Recreation Month. So today we join the National Parks and Recreation Association in recognizing their essential role in providing public services that we all need. We're going to hear from Jim Ford. Jim has talked to professionals all across the region, many states and many communities to get a handle on what they're dealing with today. There are unique challenges, and we want to know what we can do to help all the organizations and managers in the field. I'm really excited to get into this topic and hear what you have learned from talking with the professionals in the field. Let's just start right there.
Sure, Gary. So, I work with a lot of different communities across the state, and I speak with a number of different parks and recreation directors. The COVID-19 or the health crisis that we've kind of been going through has definitely made an impact on parks and recreation.
So is it impacting operations and programming and finances? What kind of impacts are you seeing?
I've spoken with a number of different parks and rec directors across the state during the health crisis. And, I've discovered that a lot of the challenges are similar. Some communities, depending on size, are facing more difficult situations with social distancing than others. But recreation as a whole has remained a constant need for communities. And directors and staffs have really stepped up to the plate and have been adapting to meet those needs.
Well, I want to ask you about some of the innovations and unique programming, innovative things that you're seeing out there. But I have to ask you, first of all, hasn't the constant change and uncertainty about the guidelines really impacted the service delivery and made things more difficult for the departments?
Well, absolutely. So it's affecting all levels of recreation. This has been a roller coaster for departments. We went through, the different phases of closure where we weren't sure how long things were going to last. That certainly caused some stress as far as staffs staying open, and also, the public wondering what they were able to do safely. I think at this point in the pandemic, departments have evolved. They have, looked at their finances. They figured out, what they need to do to remain open. Certainly PPE for staffs, signage to inform the public of what the new realities are and their limitations, and programming and facilities. They've all been affected to some degree.
Well, as the systems adapt their facilities and programming, I imagine this does put a lot of stress on the staff. What kind of leadership are you seeing in that regard?
Well, certainly, having to change abruptly, programming and services, that's been a challenge. I think some have handled it a little bit better than others, but pretty much everybody is following CDC guidelines, the guidelines set by their county health departments and our state leadership. I think as a whole, at the beginning, you might have seen a lot of confusion and a lot of difficulty. I think at this point, many departments have just adjusted. And we're moving forward. We're carrying on.
Well, as they're changing and restructuring service delivery and roles of staff, doesn't this put a real priority on communication, both in the organization and with the community?
Well, if you'd asked me this question a month ago, I'd have a different answer. While things were unknown, their goal was to try to keep their staffs busy, reallocating. And still, some communities have taken programming staffs that would have been used to program athletic events, special events, et cetera, converted those folks to doing other things. Maybe it was maintenance. Maybe it was online recreation, taking registration, having to develop whole new systems for doing that. And that continues to go on. I think in July, I have seen a few instances where staffs for programming have been furloughed. We just don't know at this point the effect and how much of our programming recreation facilities are going to be closed and for how long.
Can you provide some examples, maybe towns and cities as well, where they've really tackled these challenges of technology and provided virtual programming, and also made it possible for people to keep track of what facilities are open, what programs are available. What have you learned from the directors across the region?
So Gary, yeah, I've spoken with a few communities that have been really innovative in tackling this. Communities like New Bern that have, a lot of their facilities have been able to remain open with limited number of participants. How they've dealt with that is online registration, where folks can get online and join an event. And because, things like limitations on sports fields, I believe at 25 individuals on the field and 25 participants in the stands if it's something like a baseball event. Being able to have that registration program available so that folks can participate has been really important. Other towns like Wendell, Wendell's done a fantastic job. They've been able to convert a lot of their programming to register online and change. So instead of having recreation center programming or summer camp type programming, what they've done is they've said, hey, we're going to offer nature classes. We're going to offer survival skills, things that tap into the interest we have lately in media with things like shows like Alone or Survivor. Folks can sign up to learn about the plants in their environment or what are edible and what's not edible. There's some interesting programming going on, and being able to communicate live with the recreation departments has been really critical to seeing these programs through.
Well, let me shift gears a little bit, Jim, and ask you a question. I hope you're ready for this. It's a question about facility planning, design, because what's really saving our communities right now is having places for people to safely go out and enjoy the outdoors, trails, parks, open space. And I know this is right in your wheelhouse. So, what are you seeing in terms of communities continuing with their capital improvement plannings for parks and recreation?
Well, this has been a fantastic time for continuing our planning efforts in recreation. We know that COVID-19 is temporary. We know that there's going to be some permanent changes to how we deliver services, how facilities are designed and operated. However, this has been a good time for us planners. We've been busy figuring out, what's down the road. What is the next big thing? What have we learned? From a planning point of view, that has continued. We know that we're going to have to continue to provide this critical resource forever, right? And what the COVID-19 pandemic has really shown us is that our parks and our recreation outdoor spaces like greenways and trails, these are critical to our community well-being, our quality of life. And so I think, if anything, it's been highlighted through this health crisis. Now, has it affected design? I think it has to some degree. We are definitely learning, how to provide socially isolated spaces so that groups can gather, smaller groups can gather.
Jim, I have a follow-up question about capital planning. What resources are available to people? I would imagine that the trust fund grants are still available, but they have to do capital planning and get ahead of the curve on this. Is that true?
Absolutely. So, with any of your funding sources, you're going to want to have either a master plan or some other public outreach and documentation to, to support your applications. The same funding sources remain open that have always remained open. How things are going to change for next year is not exactly clear. We're still in a state of flux as far as what the future holds. But I anticipate, from speaking with different folks in the field, we anticipate that things will remain the same. I think the need for recreation has been emphasized during this. And so funding sources will be more important than ever as far as getting new plans and expansions, park improvements underway. But having a master plan, where you've got good public input, you've done your due diligence, you've done your needs analysis, and you've looked at all the issues within your community and been able to formulate with advisement what steps are necessary to meet your goals, your community's goals and needs, is critical to seeing any funding happen. I said, it's become more competitive in years recent, and having those master plans is really critical to being competitive in a lot of these grant processes.
From my experience, Jim, as a city manager, I know that there are a lot of resources available to help communities, large and small, compete in those environments. What resources are you aware of, both through the National Parks and Recreation Association, the state associations, and especially from McGill as well? How can people get moving on those? This is a great time, would you say, to do that?
So the need for funding has been emphasized through this health crisis. More people are seeking getting out of their house and finding recreation because of social isolation. I think for mental health as well, people understand that having good places to recreate is important. However, as more people seek recreation, the need for improvements to those facilities, expanding those facilities, critical. In order to have these projects, you have to first, understand the community's needs and goals. You have to also understand the process of recreation delivery as far as, is it going to be more active and group-oriented activities, or are we going to gravitate towards more activities that are like tennis, where there's only one or two people, or greenways, where you can distance yourself as far as you want?
What should park and recreation professionals be doing now to plan for the future? Because we will be coming out of this eventually. We will find a vaccine, and people will want to see parks and recreations energized, re-energized, and moving again. So what should they be doing?
Bottom line is, Gary, what departments need to be doing right now is taking stock in what they have, understanding that we have learned a lot about the limitations of group activities and programs. We need to be able to collect data on, what is it that people feel comfortable doing in our park systems, what's been successful, and due to a lot of the cancellations, what are people really wanting to see, and how do we get to a place where we can offer these services in the future in a safe manner? I think having good public input is part of that process. That's going to require some surveying. I think looking at your facilities and being able to plan for improvements and enhancements is also going to be critically important.
I think that's a great point about seeking input and mobilizing your community and recognizing needs and wants, and then mobilizing people behind them, because eventually they're going to want to see things happen. And do you have any other words of encouragement for people? I know these are challenging times, but Parks and Recreation are hardy people with a lot of creativity and energy.
Yeah, I think the future is bright in recreation. What has been proven is that we do have the ability to communicate both within our staffs, with our communities, and that we're able to change on a fly. Really, I've seen a lot of bright spots across our state, and I'm really hopeful that this has been a learning opportunity. A matter of fact, I'm certain it has been. I see, a bright future ahead for us. I think we need to continue planning. I think we need to continue to realize the importance of recreation and be proud of ourselves right now for being able to adapt and serve our communities in the way that we have through this health crisis.
Good thoughts, Jim. I really think that you've hit it hard. It's time to embrace the change, and Parks and Recreation professionals are good at that. I want to thank you for all your good comments and sharing what you're learning across the state. Thanks to everyone for tuning into the episode today. Be sure to visit our website, www.mcgillassociates.com, for more info on this topic and future episodes. And if you have a suggestion, you have an idea on what programming would be beneficial, please share that with us. We enjoy hearing from you. Thanks, all. Bye.